why do you support Donald Trump?
Mainly because of the stance on immigration, and I'd say like a lot as welfare policy, as well as abortion. But that's more because of a religious background.
Okay. So religious. You believe in separation of church and state?
Yeah, I do to some extent because I do believe that Christianity was one of the whole, like one of the big parts of the founding of the United States. So, but I don't believe that in any way that religion should have any like indication or have any effect on actual policy. So like I don't agree with policy being made because of religion.
Okay. So then religion wouldn't be a reason why you hold a particular position. Then it wouldn't have been relevant to bring up in this conversation, right?
Well, yeah, because that's just a moral thing. I mean, like my stance on abortion is I believe that abortion should be legal up until the first trimester, and I believe that
Up until when?
all abortion should be legal with the exceptions, whether it's the life of the mother.
Okay. Well, that doesn't happen
This
under
this
the
guy just said
context.
he would be 19, not
Well, that
18
well
when he
that,
was
that
born on the
doesn't
6th of December.
that doesn't happen under the context of Donald Trump's policy in terms of overturning Roe versus Wade because there's been no federal exceptions that have been established through the context of the law.
I understand. In terms of Roe versus Wade, I agree with that decision being left to the states.
Okay, but you know that restricts access to abortion. Those particular exceptions that you said should be granted.
I understand that, but I think that that's an issue that should be made by the people voting, not by
No, but you just said it should be
nine
protected, but then
justices.
advocated to not protect it.
I think that in terms of I'm not speaking of just disregard the fact that what my moral beliefs is, and politically, I think that the people should make that decision.
Okay, well then, if you think the people should make that decision, why don't you think that it should be left up to the individual?
Well, that's what happens. People vote
No,
for
so
abortion laws.
okay, so okay,
I
so
live
then
in
why don't
Iowa.
you think it should be left up to the individual? That's more representative of the person. If you don't want an abortion, don't get an abortion. If you want an abortion, get an abortion.
I mean, that's just like it's a law thing. It's a law, and I think
Yeah, why do you think that like the certain states should be able to restrict people's access to abortion?
I think people should be able to vote on an issue like that
Why?
because that's what democracy is.
Okay, well then why don't we do that from the context of a national perspective? Most people would vote pro-choice.
If it
So if
was
you want to
just
do it democratically, then why don't we do that?
well, because we're not a entire democracy. We're a representative democracy. So
Okay.
that's why every state
Okay,
has
so
its own set
then
of laws.
okay, so then if okay, but I don't know what your point is there.
My point is just that I think like just think that the people should have the decision to vote rather than a panel of judges.
Well, it's not up to a panel of judges; it's up to the individual, right?
Well, no, with Roe v.
With Roe
Wade, it is
versus
up to
with
the
Roe versus
judges.
Wade in place, it was up to the individual.
It's up to the judges. The
No, it
judges
was up
made that
to
decision.
it was up to the individual. What are you talking about?
The judges voted on whether it should be a matter of the courts or the matter of the people, which is what it is right now.
What? No, it's the judges ruled that it should be left up to the person to make that choice.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, what's
So
wrong with that?
I just don't agree with it.
Okay, why? Why do you want to
If I
restrict?
had the
Why do you
choice,
want to restrict other people from getting access to abortion?
if I had the choice, I would say that abortion should be only legal after or before the first trimester.
Up to what week?
So I'd say like 9 weeks,
Okay, so why 9 weeks?
just because that's where doctors, for the most part, see viability.
No, viability does not happen at 9 weeks. And by the way, viability is the standard specifically for Roe versus Wade. Okay, it says that after viability, it's left up to the states. Okay, but before liability, it's federally protected in terms of access to abortion. So you actually
Okay,
agree with Roe.
all right.
You
I'm gonna agree
you
with
actually
you. I'm gonna
agree
agree
with
with you
Roe
right
versus
there.
Wade, and you didn't even know it.
Okay, I'll agree with you right there. I think that viability. I think life of the mother. I think, but for
Then
me,
you agree with Roe versus Wade, bro?
if that's the decision that the judges came to, then yes.
Yeah. Okay. So then you support Roe versus Wade. You do not support overturning Roe versus Wade.
Okay, we could say that, but then again, that wasn't my strongest position in. I couldn't vote this past election because I turned 18. I turned 18 in December, so I
Makes
turned
sense.
18 a month
So
late.
then why do you support Trump? If it's not abortion, what is it?
One of the biggest things is probably immigration.
Okay. What about immigration? Well, actually, what are your biggest concerns with immigration? How do undocumented immigrants harm our country?
So my stance on immigration isn't as radical as Donald Trump's. I think that there should be like more vetting. I think borders should be tighter. I think that everybody that coming into the country should be vetted. So I do agree with the more secure borders, but then I also don't agree with the very progressive left stance that anybody should be able to come to this country no matter what. The concept that nobody is illegal on stolen land.
Okay,
Because I mean, you
I
can.
don't think anyone actually holds the position that no one should be allowed in, or I mean, everyone should just be allowed into our country. I don't think
But
that we think.
so
Let
when
me
you
let me
when you
explain.
see.
Let me explain. Let
Okay,
me
okay.
explain. So most people agree with the position that people who have committed violent crimes and bad crimes should be deported. Right? That's where the
Yeah.
left
Okay.
stands. Right? That's where I stand. Okay. Right now, I'm saying that people who have committed violent crimes and bad crimes should be deported. But if you are in the country and you're undocumented, you haven't committed a violent crime, bad crime, I believe you should be given a pathway to citizenship because I think that would lead to the most amount of vetting possible. Now, stay with me here. Now, if you make the process a mass deportation, people who are already in the country undocumented, their incentive is to go more into the shadows so that they're not identified by authorities so that they can stay in the country because they don't want to be deported. Okay? Which means that there are going to be people in the country who we do not vet who stay in the country. Whereas under my model, if we give them a pathway to citizenship, if they've not committed a violent crime or bad crime, right, that gives them the ability to go through a vetting process where they don't have to leave the country. So now more people are vetted than what would have happened otherwise. Then I would like to make the legal process go significantly quicker because that would ensure that people decide to go through the legal process rather than going through the process undocumented, which would ensure that more people go through the vetted process. Correct?
Yes.
Okay? And that
So
ensures that more people are vetted overall. That also ensures that the border is quote unquote tighter because we're able to spend more times in terms of border enforcement on those that have committed violent crimes and bad crimes who are actually a threat to our safety and security rather than focusing on people over 70% of the time where people are deported by ICE. I mean, not deported, detained by ICE, right? Where they have not committed a violent crime or bad crime and they have literally no prior criminal history, right? So instead of spending
mhm.
70% of their time on that, they're spending their time on people who have committed violent crimes and bad crimes, making our border more secure in terms of safety and security, right? So that's my position. I think my position, right, leads to all of the goals that you were looking for to a greater extent than your position. Because I think that the mass deportation position leads to less people being vetted because less people are incentivized to go through the vetting process. More people are incentivized to go through the process undocumented because the process takes so long and because there's a lot of deportations for those that have not committed violent crimes or bad crimes. And it doesn't make us safer because border enforcement is not focused on people who are actually a threat to the safety and security of our communities, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what you would disagree with in terms of that perspective.
So one of the reasons that I do agree with mass deportation is just because it's one of those things where if you go to the root of the issue, is that the big failure is what you saw in, let's say, for example, the Biden administration with an influx of immigrants coming into the country. So I think before you get to that problem, because I do think that the biggest problem with immigration, one, is how long and how bad like the immigration court system is because of like the lack of just immigration lawyers and things like that, and how uh, immigrants to get their due process, that uh, system takes a really long time. And that's one of the biggest reasons there's so many immigrants that can't gain their citizenship. But I think that the first problem to it, I think the first thing to the problem is you got to get them all out, the illegal ones, and then you revamp that system. So I think what's really broken is the immigration. It's the system that America put in because yes, we're a country that should be fostering and including immigrants because I think that's what our country is built off of, immigrants. I'm 100. I'm first generation. My mom is an immigrant. She went through the whole system and things like that. So
Okay,
I
hold up.
100% agree with that. But my mom came here she came here 100% legally. She went through the systems and things
Sure.
like that.
Here, can I pause you here? So, what benefit do we get from deporting people who have not committed violent crimes and bad crimes that came to our country undocumented? What benefit do we get?
I'm going to answer your question a little bit different. I'm not trying to avoid your question.
Sure.
There is no way. So the problem is, I do agree with the mass deportation. I don't agree with the way that Trump is going about it because I do think that every single immigrant that gets rounded up by ICE should be vetted. and should have their due process time. But at the same time, they're here like the crime that they committed is illegally coming into the country. So I do think every single one of them, technically under the United States law, they're all criminals.
Okay.
But that being said, they're on United States soil. I do believe that they should get their due process, and that's just a system with. I do think Trump is corrupt. I think I have way less support for him right now than I did at the election or during the election.
Can I clarify one thing real quick? Not all undocumented immigrants in the country are definitionally criminals. That's one thing that's relevant to address. Secondly, Donald Trump is a convicted criminal himself. I don't just think that because there's a violation of the law that necessarily means that there should be an enforcement of said law, right? And I think that you would say that it's true because literally we're using TikTok right now. It's banned by the government, but it's just not being enforced by the Trump administration.
But Donald Trump was, I mean, he was convicted, he was charged, and he just got. I mean, they can't put him in jail. He's a convicted felon.
Just because he was made president, so he's not being held accountable for his crimes and put in prison because he was elected president. So if we care about holding people accountable for committing crimes, well, you wouldn't have voted for Donald Trump. Secondly,
it's completely legal that I agree with what you're saying, but it's completely legal that he is in office because and he's not in jail right now because a judge ruled on it. So it's completely legal.
It technically is legal that he's in office, but what you're not understanding is that it didn't hold them accountable for the crime that he committed because of that. Secondly, I can also address like other conditions in which he hasn't held people accountable for committing crimes and how he actually is violating due process rights to a greater extent. So actually, I just want to let you know, the position you stated is actually the Democratic position. You don't agree with the listen. You don't agree with the method that Trump is utilizing to deport people, but you do agree with deporting people. That is literally what typical Democrats will say, right? I'm not even trolling. That's the exact position. Okay?
I agree with the more central position. There are just so the reason I'm doing this right now is just because both on the left and right side, I feel like both sides are too radical, right? I don't agree with there are.
What did I say that was radical?
No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying I'm just using this as like the platform, but I'm saying there are a lot of liberals, just like there are a lot of Republicans, like the guy that you were just talking to that said we should be able to walk down the street with a minigun. I don't
think that's very common. I don't think that's a common position.
No.
Now, here's one thing I can establish. Here's one thing I can establish is that just because we hear something on the live doesn't mean that's prevalent by almost everyone who's a Democrat or everyone who's a Democrat.
Well, I hear takes like that all the time. I go to the University of Iowa. I attend the University of Iowa. And I want to tell you that the things that I hear on this campus, it's one of the most radical campuses. Iowa City is one of the most, liberal places. But granted, it's a college campus. But I hear a lot of radical takes here. And at the same time, I'm from Iowa. I'm from
Iowa as well. I just want to let you know.
Where in Iowa are you from?
QC.
Quad Cities.
Mm-hmm. I grew up there. I moved out to LA in 2014, but I lived in Iowa for almost most of my life, so I don't know what happened in Iowa since I left, but
Iowa City is extremely liberal.
I've been to Iowa City.
I'm from Johnston.
But I wouldn't say that the typical liberal in Iowa City is going to be radical. Okay?
No.
I lived in Iowa, and I definitely don't think Iowa was very much radical liberal. Genuinely,
no, it's not.
I never got that from Iowa ever.
The rest of the Iowa City is. The rest of Iowa is not. Iowa City is just because it's a college campus.
Maybe sure, but I don't know about extremely liberal or radical liberal.
It's compared to what I'm used to, compared to my norm.
Oh, sure, but your norm is pretty conservative, probably rural Iowa. Okay, you can't compare your norm to.
I'm not from rural Iowa. I'm Des Moines area, and compared to Des Moines area, I think that it's a big difference for sure.
Sure, maybe. So are you just saying you go to places where people are becoming educated and it's becoming more liberal?
No, that and can we go to that point for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's why I don't like the point when people say, conservatives are less educated just because that's what. I mean, you can say that to a point, but I don't think that should matter because when you look at who the conservative voting population are, they're not people that they're people that work blue collar jobs, that work on farms and things like that have different You know, they have different needs, they have different points of views.
A lot of
So it's
farmers are Democratic. A lot of people who are like working blue collar
well, if
jobs
you
are
look
also
if you look at
Democratic.
like if you look at the maps in big farm counties,
But sure,
in
yeah, they are disproportionately more right wing. I don't dispute you there. Now, that's true.
but that's
That's not
like
just true for farm areas. It's true for like any area in which there's a smaller town, right? Large cities tend to be more Democratic. Where people are more spread out, they tend to lean more conservative.
okay, that's true, but I just don't think that just because somebody is more educated or it's just because somebody's a conservative that automatically means that they're less educated that they're less educated.
No one said that. No one
No, no,
said
no,
that
I'm
just
not saying
because someone
I'm
is
not saying you say
conservative
that.
that they are
That's a
necessarily less educated. It just means that conservatives typically are less educated. Now, conservatives write this off typically by saying, right, colleges are liberal indoctrination camps or something like that. You know, that was the typical argument. Was that, but like, I mean, it is a fact that, you know, liberals tend to be more educated. That's a fact.
okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna disagree. I just think that if you just look at if you look at who the people that are like, and look at the exit polls, the people that are voting conservatives are just like, there are more people that are go straight into the workforce that are working your blue collar jobs, electricians, carpenters, things like that, farmers. So I mean, yes, you can say they're uneducated, but does that mean that their
What? Those
vote
are
matters
all
less?
educated fields. I'm confused.
No, when we're saying when we're talking about education, we're talking about degrees. Every time I've seen a statistic, it's about college degree or attended college.
I mean, it's not just culture. I mean, you can account for those other sort of like certificates as well. But I mean, it's yeah, we are typically talking about degrees. What's your point though?
My point is just that the difference is it could be mostly due to just the fields that they work in.
Okay, let's go back to what your original point was with like bringing up that Iowa radical liberals. Right. What's the radical takes you hear? Give me the most radical liberal take.
For example, Donald Trump is a fascist. I don't think Donald Trump is a fascist. That's exactly the same to say. Conservatives like to say that Kamala Harris is a socialist. I don't think that she's a socialist. I think she's very progressive. I don't think that means she's a socialist.
Yeah, I agree. She's
Same
definitely
thing.
not a socialist, but Trump is a fascist. So actually,
Why?
that's not a radical
So,
take. That's not a radical take.
okay, so does Trump push other? Does he only think that there should be one party? Does he suppress other parties? Is
Well,
this a one party state? Because you can't be a fascist in a two party state.
yes, you can.
Well,
Right.
fascism
Now,
is
let
one
me
party
explain
state.
why. Let me explain. Well, there are limitations to being able to get there. A fascist
So
might
he's
not
not a
necessarily
fascist. You can be a
listen.
fascist in a
Hey,
government system that's a
listen,
balance.
listen. He can be ideologically fascist, and he just doesn't think it's practical to shift to a one-party state yet. Right? That's you understand that they have to get to a point where they can actually do that.
So
That's
he's
like
not a
saying
fascist
that's like
because
saying
it's not a
prior
one
to
party
the that's
state.
like listen. That's like saying prior to a one-party state being established in the context of Germany that Hitler was not a fascist. That's ridiculous.